Welcome to the RotoViz Fantasy Football Report, Week 4. We are back. We are talking Justin Fields, Jordan Love, Dontavian Wicks. We got it all. Good week of football. How's it going, guys?
Good. Ready to talk about it. Best week of football we've had so far this year, I think so. Ready to get into it.
Yeah. The Stars are heading into midseason form, and us too. We're also rounding into form here, right? Well, Derrick Henry just scored a hell of a touchdown. Yeah, so as I was telling the guys, we're a little late because I went out and poured myself a nice beer. Unfortunately, I thought this was more of a sour raspberry kind of vibe. Apparently, this one's actually like a deep chocolate stout. I didn't realize the differences. And so I was like, oh, this is too sweet. And so I got to get like a salty snack to cut it. It's a little too early for like the chocolate stouts. You know what I mean?
What are you drinking?
It's a local brewery over here called, they used to be called Dry Log. I guess they're called Strange Roots now. And they do these really cool American farmhouse style ales from time to time. And this is one they do around this time. They have like these Halloween beers. This one's called the Ritual. Yeah, the Ritual, the Mark, and then there's the Plague.
All right. Good names. Yeah. Well, speaking of the Plague, man, that would be such a good segue if I had a player.
I know, right? Well, we do have one, right?
Yeah, we got one bad one.
Well, sadly. Rashid Rice, Szafraniec ACL. It's definitely not the Plague, but it might as well be, right?
Yeah.
In his absence, today we saw a lot of Kelsey. He got 7 of his 9 targets for 89 scoreless yards. Worthy got 3 of his 4 targets for 73 yards, and one of those was like a long touchdown. This is a sad one to just talk about because Rice is just a special player. He's having a really good season. But, in his absence, like, what are your guys' thoughts on the other two? And then who else on this offense makes sense?
Well, I mean, it seems like Kelsey's going to be the main guy kind of out of necessity. I think Rice will still have those splash plays. But, I mean, it's just sad all around. Even watching the game, the one thing, even though it's interdivision, that might make sense, maybe like salary cap wise and all that stuff, is the guy that Rashid Rice is looking a lot like is Javonte Adams, and he's not really all that happy in Las Vegas. So, I mean, that's if they could pull some magic out of their hat, and I don't think it's going to happen, but that would be nice. I mean, because that's literally kind of who Rashid Rice is kind of reminding me of right now is younger Davante Adams. But
yeah,
long shot, very, very long shot.
The money doesn't work, dude.
Yeah,
it just doesn't work.
Yeah,
the Chiefs they've been in the process of puking away really good talent to keep make sure this continues. They continue to remain under the salary cap. But to your point, they should just go for it. I mean, there has to be a way, right? Like, right?
Yeah.
We haven't seen Worthy ever get a ton of targets in this offense, but do you think this is what finally gets him to be kind of like a target hog? I mean, we did see him do that a little bit at Texas some years, so he's got that capability.
More than, I mean, like right now, like you're just seeing
only a gadget player, right?
Right, yeah, because you're seeing this is very much like when they first had Tyreek Hill, right? Oops, sorry about that. That's right. Yeah, that's a very good point. You're correct. I should not.
Not true and talk on stream, please. Agree.
Is correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll do that. I thought I had a noise gate, but I guess that doesn't help out. But you just completely threw me off. Ford or ETN for week 5 full PPR, that'd be ETN for me. But just to go back to Worthy a little bit, right? Like this is more like where you're seeing with was like the Tyreek Hill rookie season where they just didn't trust him with a ton of targets, right? To that end, I really do think that you're going to see Worthy being used a lot more in the mid space than we would. That's why I was thinking about like a guy like a Justin Watson, right? Like if he's on your wire, like does he make sense as like a pickup?
Yeah, that's a good call.
Right, like that's like the curiosity. I mean, like we talked about Emmanuel Wilson being a viable pickup last week, but I do think Justin Watson kind of does become almost like a little bit of a higher priority this week because he did get some work, and I think he does fit. It's not 1-to-1, right? Like it's not 1-to-1, but at the same time, you get something out of it.
Yeah, it's sure not McCole Hardman, so we feel like that's kind of redundant with Worthy.
It's also not Juju Smith-Schuster, right?
Oh gosh, no. Let's hope not.
Because like when that happened, you saw Watson get about like 3 targets, right? And Sky Moore got 2, but like Sky Moore has been unproductive. Watson actually does produce a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. So I do think that if you're like on from a waiver wire perspective, like you do want Watson on your roster, I think.
Suppose you're a Rashee Rice owner. Are you prioritizing Watson over someone like Dontavian Wicks, who might also be on the wire?
No, I agree with Hasan on that one.
No.
What if Wan'Dale Robinson is on your wire?
Yeah, then you want Wan'Dale
over Watson.
Yeah, for sure. Right? Like I'm just making the assumption that like this is more or less like I guess when I'm talking about our wires, I'm thinking of this from like the perspective of our FFBC 20-man roster. Like you really are scrounging fairly deep, not from like the perspective of like 16-man roster 12-team league. I'm thinking of it from like a 20-man roster 12-team league.
About Jordan Whittington, 8 targets today, 72.
Yeah, you kind of want Whittington over like Watson becomes like a tier 4 or tier 5 kind of pickup, right? Whittington makes more sense. Wicks makes more sense, right? Wan'Dale, if you somehow on your rosters, make more sense.
Ray McLeod
makes more sense.
7 targets, 52 yards.
Yeah, that's right.
Trying to find someone you'll say no. I would prefer Watson over.
No, it's not. It's not going to happen, right? Like that's like the issue is like these guys are the thing that actually interests me at least about Ray McLeod.
5 targets.
Who?
Quentin Johnson.
But like Quentin Johnson is like the man. Like I don't understand why you'd want Justin Watson over him.
1 catch for 9 yards.
But 5 targets. And he's been good before this though, right? Like
I think it's with QJ, we're kind of looking at the hit and miss, but I think his ceiling's overall higher. I mean, I think Ray McLeod's a good talking point with Watson out of all those guys. Even like because Tutu had 6 targets and he's been more consistent in the last 2 weeks. So like even I think Whittington's even a is a question just because we've actually seen Watson kind of do it before, and Whittington's kind of. I mean, he's the new guy. When the Cup, it's Cup coming back next week.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
is Cup back next week?
I'm not.
I thought if anything, it would be Puko is back ahead of Cup. I haven't heard a timetable on Cup, but could you confirm that, Kevin?
I'm not sure. I didn't think because Cup didn't hit IR. I don't think did he?
No, but if we heard he was out for quite a while, and like he's like it's been like what a week. I didn't think quite a while was now. Rams week 6 by that. Thanks, joking. Yeah, I didn't figure it was going to be until after that. Like I thought that's when both of them are going to return.
Yeah, so you have that's essentially all that you have is the maybe 2 weeks of production out of that. Where Watson, if they don't pick anybody else up, you might have for the rest of the season.
Man, I think Mark Andrews is over. He just dropped an absolute sitter of a pass. Like you would never see him dropping this. Anyway, yeah. So like to that point though, with Ray McLeod, what makes Ray McLeod interesting and also Darnell Mooney interesting, right? Is that like these guys are getting fed, and they can't find anything for Kyle Pitts on this offense, guys. Like I know, like I don't know about you guys, but I'm really worried, right? Like last week we talked about how like the Saints have been shredded by the tight end, right? The Kyle Pitts was held out of catch on 3 targets, right, in their week 4 win over the Saints. It was his first catches performance of the season, and he hasn't really gotten more than 3 catches in a game this year, right? Like he's basically got 105 yards, and he's only cleared 40 catches, like 40 receiving yards once this season, right? Pitts just doesn't look, he just doesn't look good, man. Like like it's just. Like the fact that he's now losing work to like Darnell Mooney, Ray McLeod, right? Yeah. Like Like
The
it's
offense
just
still doesn't look good. Even though they put up 26 points today, they still do not look like a competent offense.
well, yeah, that's true. I mean, like, yeah, that like the thing with bits and like the thing that's like sad is that
Did they get 26 points? Was it all?
I don't know how they got 26 points.
I think it
dude.
was a defensive touchdown, a special teams touchdown, I do believe. So
Wow.
yeah,
Missed this game.
it was one worth missing. So don't worry.
Yeah, it was. But what actually does like I do want to get your guys' take on this is that like the best 15 the Falcons actually look was that 2-minute drive against the Eagles where they came back to win the game, right? Like I think we talked about this a little bit last week as well, but like the Falcons in your head are very different than what they should look like, right?
Mhm.
So what are you doing with Pitts?
Man, Pitts. I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like he did have 1,000-yard rookie season. Like, right? He's shown in the NFL that he, at times anyway, can actually be a good tight end. So
And then Drake London showed up and he cucked him instantly.
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah, I wrote a few weeks ago in that Pitts piece because even Hasan brought it up, and at the time I didn't even really realize it. But I think if he was going to break out, it would have been last week against the Chiefs because they say at the beginning of the season likely went gangbusters on him, and then Gesicki of all people, did this the next week. And then when you said, oh, like maybe the Chiefs are just terrible against tight ends, and look who they played week 3 was the Falcons, and he still did nothing. And I still got baited into. I started him in one of my FFPC dynasty leagues. I just couldn't push him out. I got Bowers and tight ends, and so like it was between Pitts and like either Chase Brown or maybe Juwan Jennings, and I still just couldn't slide him out. But I don't think I'm going to have that issue going forward.
yeah, right.
I mean, you can't, right?
Yeah.
It becomes more of a question if he's your only tight end, if you didn't have Bowers, and then your other options are also potential zeros anyway. So what are you doing if it's like between, if it's between Pitts and someone you have to pick up and like, I don't know, Colby Parkinson or something?
I mean, you're probably still playing Pitts. It's just the issue is us having this discussion, right? Like the issue isn't like how you course correct. The issue is what do you do after you spend so much draft capital on a guy who you expected to be your week in, week out, everyday plug and play, because it defeats the entire purpose of having like spending that roster spot on a tight end, right? That's the issue. The issue is that you just picked a stone cold zero around a whole bunch of other guys that are actual valuable contributors. That's the issue.
Yeah, for 3 years in a row, at least in my case.
Yeah, that itself is it's more of like a process issue or a macro, like an actual team construction issue, because like when you're building a roster out, you're like, this is me sorted at tight end. It's not I'm taking Kyle Pitts and I'm going to take like Brock Bowers, unless you're like planning on that dual mid to late tight end kind of idea. That's the issue. It's like from a structural perspective, it's very difficult to claw back. Right? Like how do you course correct off of that? That's the question.
Let's say Pitts gets a little better from here and finishes the season with like 600 yards and 5 touchdowns. Where are you drafting?
Oh, great. Like in the 15th round? Like what kind of Hunter Henry-esque stat line is this?
He's on pace for like 450. So this is him playing better.
I mean, next year he'd probably just be completely like 13th to 15th round pick, right? Like, and if people are taking him in the 8th to 10th, then I'll have 0%. I wouldn't care.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the question. Like, how much does all of the kind of pedigree matter next year if
it doesn't
continues to be this disappointing for the most part?
It doesn't, right? Like how often do these guys truly? I mean, in certain cases, they need like a change of scenery, right, to like bounce back. Njoku, I think, is the only one who like really course corrected. Did like an Eric Ebron or like OJ Howard. I can't rack in my brains, but I don't think they ever really lived up to where the draft capital slots were. And even after getting traded, they never like turned into the kind of receiving tight ends that you think they should be, right?
Yeah.
So last year he had 667 yards and 3 touchdowns. So if he repeats that performance, like last year, that stat line with kind of the Kyle Pitts pedigree was enough to get him into, 5th round.
Oh, well, there's more than that, right? For Kyle Pitts this year, it was like, oh, he's getting a new quarterback. He's getting a change of offenses, so, of OC. It's no longer going to be Arthur Smith, right? And like now, whatever his name is making saying the exact same stuff that Arthur Smith was saying. We don't care about getting him stats. We want to win football games.
Right.
All right, cool, man. Like,
Yeah.
right? Like at that, yeah. It's like what happened? None of his rookie year, none of his coaches have prioritized him since. That was the thing. They picked him in his rookie year to be like a receiver, and since then they drafted Drake London, and then they picked up a bunch of other guys, and then they just realized that the offense doesn't need to flow through him.
Yeah,
was that, right? Like,
right. Hard to believe that you're like number 4 pick overall can't help you win football games, but who am I to say?
It happens. And it's even not even just watching that game, Algier looked better, I think, than Bijan. I mean, I know you said you haven't watched it, but like just as a runner, he was definitely better as a runner. And then he was also catching passes out of the backfield. It just seems like that whole offense is just a little bit off still. And hopefully they're still figuring things out. But
or we've overrated these guys, right?
Yeah. Yep.
That is a bigger problem. That's a bigger problem, right? Like I think I think Bijan is very talented. I think he's very good. Like, are you taking him over Saquon Barkley again if you had to redraft today? And I don't think you are, right?
Oh no. No, I think you got to take Saquon.
Yeah.
I mean, he looks good. It's every time he gets the ball and he just runs into the line, he doesn't seem to go anywhere. He looks good in space when they get him the ball on the swing pass and things like that. He looks really good out in space. It's just, I mean, he just can't, get past their line. And I don't know if that's a line issue but like right now, I mean, I feel like we just overrated all these guys. Like Hasan said, I'm just hoping that maybe they're still figuring it out. But I feel like right now I'm definitely on the wrong end of that,
Yeah, it's a bad trade for me too. Like, trust me. Like, I would have much rather. Even though Brees got like destroyed by Braylon Allen today, unfortunately, I don't know what happened in that game. But I mean, like realistically, I would much rather have Brees over Bijan, right? Like I think like it's not even close, right? Like the fact that, like again to your point, Kevin, like if you're watching these games and Tyler Algier is the one who's still getting meaningful work and he's kind of popping off the page, and I don't really understand how we can go about thinking. Like we're lying to ourselves if we think that like Bijan is this like elite talent when he's phenomenal, right? But he's not necessarily like a Brees Hall, like legendary upside-ish kind of tier guy, right? Like it becomes in and of itself like our own issue. The issue, frankly, is like who would you take ahead of him? And I don't think you do take anyone ahead of him. Realistically, I think if you could go back in time, you'd probably be taking Justin Jefferson ahead of him back in the day, like, go back or whatever, right? Like, I think that's pretty much your solution, but c'est la vie, I guess, right?
Yeah. Joe King brings up a good point about just
Jets aren't it either. Yeah, I agree with you. Do you know who looks really electric in space? It's Justice Hill. But
talk about the Jets. I don't know if that's on your show sheet, but just looking at this,
it is not on the show sheet. But let's talk about the Jets, man.
I mean, what are you doing with Garrett Wilson, for instance? Are you benching him?
No. I mean, that's like the issue. We know he's gonna. He had like a whole Rodgers injured his left leg and he's limping.
Yeah, he is listed as questionable. Did he come out of the game though?
I don't think I saw him after a sack. I saw him get up gingerly. I don't know if that's when it happened or not.
Yeah.
My biggest issue is the biggest issue for GW. Yeah, Brees was stuffed twice. Yeah, that exactly historical anomalies. That's the thing. Like Brees is like his performance is very different, right? name brand only, offense gives him 2-yard runs. Yeah, like I do think the issue with Garrett Wilson right now is that the offense is prioritizing Mike Williams and Alan Lazard and stuff. A little frustrating. I mean, like to be fair, like Wilson, he's had like a bunch of very difficult matchups.
Yeah.
The issue there is that like a guy of his caliber and talent should be able to like shake those off, right? Yeah. I mean, like look at Justin Jefferson, man. like try and stop him. Try and stop him, man. Like, did you see that catch he made over that Green Bay defensive back for a touchdown?
Oh, yeah, I saw. Yeah. Well, even Justin Jefferson said, like, to put it kindly to Garrett Wilson, he said, "I'm not Garrett Wilson." A couple.
Exactly. That's the thing.
Yeah. And
right?
even so,
like,
yeah, and I wanted to kind of bring up because I wrote up Garrett Wilson in just a Newsweek or a newsroom article this week, and a lot of looking at the SOS strength of schedule app, he does not have very many good matchups until like week 11. Even the green. So in week 8 he's got New England, and in week 9 he's got Houston. But then he'll get Gonzalez again in New England, and he'll get Stingley Jr. in Houston. Barring injury. So like really. He doesn't really have very many good matchups until like you get into almost like the fantasy playoffs. So I mean, it looks like it's going to be some tough sledding for Garrett Wilson for the majority of the year, unfortunately.
Yeah. So this is a guy that you probably drafted in the first round or early second if he's on your team, and like there can't be that many teams that have the luxury to be able to bench him. But like I don't want to start him right now. And I don't know, maybe the Jets can figure it out. But they look bad.
Yeah, if we're leaving it to Nathaniel Hackett, I'm not super optimistic about that.
Yeah.
I know I posted about this in the Ship Jason Discord, but like, a guy, I want to share this with you guys in the private chat. We can bring it up if you want. But the guy who I am excited about right now is Jamar Chase, man. Yeah. So historical anomalies brings up a really good point, right? Like Surtain shut down Garrett Wilson, but that's been the tale of the season. That's right? Like when you're drafting these guys in the first round, like, yes, I know you have shut down corners. A lot of the guys you're drafting in the first round don't get shut down. That's why they're going in the first round, right? Like you have your CD Lamb, right? You have your before the injury, you had Tyreek Hill. You've got Justin Jefferson, AJ Brown. Well, he wasn't there, but like again, like that's like the issue, right? Like Joe, like that's like the offense is incredibly uninspired, kind of boring. I don't know. I'm not understanding what's going on. All right, excuses are for pit stands. Yeah, that's right. That's the thing. I'm a Garrett Wilson fan, but you're not going to find me posting a whole bunch of routes about like how the ball didn't go his way. Right. That's just not the way it goes. Right. Like when you're drafting Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase at like 109, 110, just insane to me. Right. But like these guys, they just put up points again, week in, week out. They come with this ridiculous floor that they give you as first round picks. And then it's like the ceiling, because each and every one of these guys has that ceiling. But like, it's the floor that puts them apart, right? Like you're just like when you're looking at them penciled in your lineup, you're like that's 16 to 18 PPR points baseline, and then you get 30, 40 or whatever it is sometimes from like time to time, right? It's not. That's like the issue that I'm having. It's just so hard to reconcile. Like they're incredible, like both Brees and Wilson's as ADPs with their performances. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough scene right now.
And even kind of what Joe King brings up is like, that's kind of, I was thinking is the Pitts is pretty similar in the fact that we're trying to like project these situational contexts, all these things that are changing into their projections. And it just isn't coming to fruition. Like, oh, we have this new coaching staff in Atlanta so that, Pitts is going to take off. Garrett Wilson's going to get Aaron Rodgers back. He's going to take off, and it's just not happening. So
the issue is like when you're with forecast. The issue is with like forecasting, right?
Yeah,
is like how do you isolate this effect and not double or triple count it, right? And I think that's like it's something that like Fantasy Dude showed about. My God, now 10 years ago, Blair, 10 years ago that forecasting article came out, right? Like about like the difficulty of it. And it's like how difficult is it to actually isolate a lot of these items and like reliably not double count? And now with like Twitter, right? Like it's very difficult because you get like these ridiculous hype trains, right? It's just like, and like also like part of it is also the like there's like a second part of this is like the wisdom of the crowds, right? Like if the crowds are all like very much going one way and you're like the other way, right? Like what makes you inherently believe that you're smarter than everybody else? And I don't necessarily think of myself that way. I don't think that I'm smarter than everybody else. I don't, right? Like it's just I just assume from a humility-based drafting perspective, the crowd knows something that I do not, right?
I guess, except fantasy football crowd is more an echo chamber than a true wisdom of the crowd scenario. But I hear what you're saying.
Right, but like,
I just well, yeah, I don't know. I've been so wrong on all these guys. So
yeah, I mean, yeah, it's to a point. It is a little bit of a hive-mindish approach, right? But like kind of what Joe King mentioned. But like like there is some like the other thing is you can't also just completely be out on guys of this talent. You know what I mean? Like you just can't like decide. I mean, like they are the kind of like player that can break the game. This is the kind of stuff that I find really interesting from like a relative. Like this is like the we know nothing. Like how do you like parse these situations type of thing, right? Like one of the things I actually did this week, and I can have everybody like tell me I'm wrong or whatever, right? So like I made like a trade in one of my in one of my redraft leagues, and they take a work league, right? I moved Garrett Wilson for James Cook, right? Which I like to give you guys the full roster. It's also got like Neighbors, Odunze, Brian Thomas Jr., Xavier Worthy, all on my bench, right? Like I can't start everybody, right? And so that's kind of what I did was I moved Garrett Wilson. And Puka Nacua is on IR, right? And so I made this trade like thinking it would make both of our players like both of our teams stronger, right? The guy who I was trading with did something even cooler, which I thought was pretty cool. Was he actually traded away at the same time? He moved away his Justin Jefferson for Bijan and Tank, and he got my Garrett Wilson, right? So he had like a two-way trade going on where he shipped away James Cook and Justin Jefferson and got those three players. Which I thought was actually kind of like a smart way to do it in that he saw a trade that he wanted to actually execute on and then realized that he wanted to upgrade the running back position from his backups. And so he went ahead and like did like this massive transfer of like assets. And I think that that's like where it gets interesting is when you're actually trading away guys who everybody wants to on their rosters. Like I think that that's kind of like the way I think about it. And like part of it is like, if I have Garrett Wilson, right, I'm not moving him in Dynasty at all. Like there's just no way. But like from like a redraft perspective, you should probably like poke around to like actually figure it out because it's not going to remain bad for Garrett Wilson forever, right? And if you can afford to move him off, then yeah, you should. And if you can't afford to move him off, then you just got to like live with the volatility, unfortunately. And of course, now as we head into the bye weeks, you just have to live with it. It's not like it gets any easier for him next week. They're playing in London and they play against the Vikings. So like that's like a double whammy right there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if it makes sense as someone who's a Garrett Wilson fan like I am, who also notices he's not playing well this year. He's had 2 straight seasons of below expectation efficiency, minus efficiency. Is the time to move him in Dynasty right now while he still has some residual value?
What would you move him for, though?
Do you think I could get a first and a second?
Oh, you could probably get a first and a second. I don't know if you just want to settle for that, though.
2 firsts.
2 firsts would be like what I'd be aiming for, right?
I was about to say 2 firsts, but that sounded too rich. But maybe I'm more pessimistic than you guys are.
Well, but you're also better at trading than like I am.
Well,
right? Like
I get more bad trades done for me probably because I'm
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah. Okay, Mister. Give me your first round. I'll give you Rashad Bateman. How did that work out for me? Huh?
Yeah, at the time Rashad Bateman looked awesome. I think probably right. Yeah, this is a good question. How does Wilson's situation get better? That's the other thing I'm thinking when I ask, is now the time to sell in Dynasty? Because it's either going to be another season of Rodgers who looks washed, or it's going to be a rookie or a backup.
That's right. That's the crazy thing, right? Like how did Garrett Wilson's best season come with ZW under center? Like right? Like explain that to me.
Yeah.
He was like, I think the issue is that like Rodgers is fine with spreading the ball out the dump offs, right? Whereas Zach Wilson, because he's a bad quarterback, just locks in on Garrett Wilson. He just gives him 15 targets.
I think that was certainly part of the argument for Wilson after his first year, was that like he played with Zach Wilson, who was like objectively the worst quarterback in the league, and
at the time, Bryce Young exists,
right?
And also now Caleb Williams exists,
right? Bryce Young was still at Alabama, looking like one of the best ever, right? So yeah, Wilson he wasn't good necessarily, but he was fine. He was competent, even though Zach Wilson was terrible. And then year 2, he doesn't pull it together because Rodgers gets hurt. Well, okay. He had to play with bad quarterbacks again. I don't know. Maybe he's never had a good quarterback because Rodgers doesn't look good either.
Are you saying this? He is like the Kyle Pitts or Justin Jefferson's?
I don't want to quite go that far, but that is what I'm hinting at.
That's true.
Yeah, I mean, you could say that. You could say that about Pitts too, I guess, because Kirk Cousins looks like.
Well, yeah, but they've got Mike Phoenix in the wings, right? The issue is Kyle Pitts has looked bad, but like Spencer Rattler, Kirk Cousins, probably Michael Phoenix, right? Like there's like no you're out of excuses for Pitts, right?
I mean, you're out of like upside situations. It doesn't look like it's better, right? But isn't that the case with Garrett Wilson as well?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're running fairly thin on Garrett Wilson upside cases.
Yeah.
And again, this is like a team. Honestly, the Jets, to Gavin's point from earlier, the Jets are a team that could potentially like trade for Adams and absorb that gap.
So what I'm saying is, in Dynasty, if you think you can get 2 firsts for Garrett Wilson, that's a trade you should make right now.
You should do it
because I think
every day of the week.
I think I wouldn't give up that much for him.
Yeah.
But then, what's the bid ask? So what's the bid ask, right? So like,
well, I said a first and a second, but maybe even that's like too ambitious. Would you trade?
I think that's about right.
Would you trade Wilson for just a first from like a team that you expect to be bad next year, an early first?
Yes.
Wow.
I'd probably get a little extra on top. I think he's worth a little more than a first. I think he still has that value, at least the name value, even if the production value isn't there. But I think first and a second, it feels pretty fair at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, but if you think it's gonna be like an early first, right? And you need and let's assume you're like it's a super flex league and you need a quarterback, then you do that trade, right? Like no one in these super flex dynasty leagues, and this is like the biggest shortfall of dynasty, is no one trades their quarterbacks.
Just don't draft the quarterback the Jets take.
And when you do draft, and then when you do get through it, it's just, I don't know, man. Like Superflex Dynasty it's a format that's interesting. It's just not for me as much anymore. It's Superflex itself on its face doesn't make necessarily a ton of sense anyway. I mean, it's a good idea. I like it, but there has to be a way to devalue the quarterback down to where you actually make flexing other skill players a much better option.
Yeah.
It's like an all or nothing sort of thing. Either quarterbacks have no value or they have all the value. So I get it. That's kind of something I've thought about in the past too. Is I wish there was some sort of middle ground on that, but
yeah. And speaking of superflex quarterbacks who didn't have any value, now they have a ton of value. Jordan Love, man, baby, he's back. Y'all not phased by Bowers. This should have been the week. Yeah, we haven't like explicitly gone to it, but we will get to that one.
Mhm.
I do want to talk Jordan Love really quick, right? Like initially, Love did not look good, man. Like he looked like he struggled a little bit for a while. Like they were getting completely wrecked.
Yeah.
Recognizing that it is, largely garbage time, counting stats that came up. They did put the fear of Jesus into the Vikings there. But like Love finished with, hang on, I'm pulling this up. This is not on our show sheet. He completed 32 of 54 passes for 389 yards and 4 scores. One of the bigger beneficiaries there was Dontavian Wicks, who got 5 of 13 targets for 78 yards. Right, like Christian Washington was out after a second quarter ankle injury, and everybody else got the ball. Apologies. But he, it seems like Love was back, man. Like Love is back. Dontavian Wicks with this Christian Washington injury really sort of like moved away from like being this wide receiver 4 to becoming like a wide receiver 3. And then Jayden Reed just went off, man. Seven catches, 139 yards, and a score. So I really want to know, like, how comfortable are you guys starting Jordan Love going forward? What is your temperature on the re-injury risk?
Yeah, I don't know. Not a doctor. Don't know much about re-injury risk, but I would say I'm very comfortable starting Love. I mean, the Vikings are kind of, they've been one of the better defenses in the league. It's not even sneaky anymore to say they're a good defense. They like legitimately are. And they blitz a lot. So yeah, for Love to put up this kind of line against what we think is a pretty strong, pretty tough matchup is definitely encouraging. I'm happy to start Love. Want to start Reed almost everywhere. Wicks getting these 13 targets is interesting, and the 2 touchdowns is interesting. Only 5 receptions on those 13 targets is concerning. Is Wicks someone you look to start if you're without Rashee Rice, for instance? Does Wicks move into your starting lineup?
I think because we all know last year, really when Wicks and Reed both took off was after Watson or when
Yep.
Watson was out. So I think a lot of it really has to come back to is what's going on with Watson. I just went back to look at week 1 because I was kind of interested because how many attempts Love had. He had 34 before that last drive. So I feel like that's probably a better gauge of what they'll be throwing going forward. So I mean, Wicks is more like a throw it up flex sort of play going forward. I don't feel like you're going to throw him in your lineup feeling super confident at this point because he still looked like Wicks. He had the drops issues. Like that was his biggest thing last year is he dropped a good amount of balls and he did it again today. So, but I do feel like we could see him start to move forward because I said a lot of us were projecting him to take a step forward this year. And there's a lot of evidence saying that he could take a step forward, but I'm not super confident like next week. I mean, I want to see it probably another week or 2 before I like, all right, I'm cool throwing this.
I think you just got to
go for it.
Sorry. I think you just have to next week, dude. Like the Lions are on bye, Titans are on bye, Eagles are on bye, and the Chargers are on bye, right? Like I don't think you can't not start him next week. I mean, like the big thing for Wicks is that like drops are just like like an indicator of usage, right? Like that's the thing. Joe King with an all-time Wicks rater than Garrett Wilson. Ooh, I don't know, man. Maybe also Romeo Doubs.
Wilson, if you own them both. I probably do own them both on a lot of teams.
Yeah.
That might be.
Yeah. Reed is good. Look at his 2 games with Love. That's right. Historical anomalies. The other thing is that like Romeo Doubs is still there. It's not like it's.
This I think is no question.
This is just like pure facts. Historical anomalies says Reed better than Garrett Wilson. Just facts. Like Romeo Doubs is also there, right? Like I think Kevin, to your point, like the issue with drops is not so much that they're dropping the ball, but it's more or less like an indicator of usage, right? The issue is if he keeps dropping the ball and then his targets actually start shrinking, right?
Yeah.
That's the issue, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's the issue. And so I think like right now, especially if you head into the buys, you just need to start these guys with Love under center, right?
Yeah.
It's nice. It's nice.
Yeah, the 2 touchdowns for Wicks probably keep him relevant in the Packers offense, even though
Without a doubt.
Yeah, normally seeing 5 for 13 would be a big red flag.
Yeah, but it's not like an issue because like they kept going back to him. It's not like they started shelving him away. It's not like they started prioritizing Tucker Kraft. It's not like they started prioritizing like Dobbs. Dobbs also got 4 of 8 targets, right? Like, and it's not like Love was like sharp today, right? Like, like give them time, man. Like they will be back. Before we move on, I did want to go back to that Jets Broncos game. This is great, man. We're spending so much time on like the worst game of the week, but Javonte Williams had like 16 rushes for 77 yards, right? He also had 2 catches for 3 yards. Part of this is just sort of like Tyler Badie. I don't know, Bidet.
It's Bidet, baby.
Oh my god. Okay, so like anyway, so Bidet exited the game with a severe back injury. As someone who had a severe back injury, my thoughts and prayers are with him, right? The Broncos, though, they trusted Williams in critical situations. In the second half, Jaleel barely saw the ball. So if Bidet is like off long-term injury variety, right? Yeah. It sounds like he's going to be like the lead back going forward. And I think I'm very excited to play Javonte next week because they get the pitiful Raiders' offense. I mean, the Raiders' defense next week.
Mm-hmm. And he looked
good. I want to get your guys' thoughts. Yeah, like what are we doing here?
Yeah. I mean, I was borderline ready to cut him. And even when I did the waivers article last week, I said, I didn't put him on the potential cut list, but I said he's getting there. And then, because I mean, that whole entire game, the weather, at least the first half, was a total crapshoot. It was just a sloppy mess, and it seemed like it got a little better in the second half. And I remember seeing the first run from Williams all year that I thought, I'm like, wow, that was a good run. It happened right before halftime. And then when he came out, he was breaking off those chunk runs pretty regularly. So I was very excited to see that. Like I said, I'm excited to throw him back in the lineups next week, and I hope it just doesn't revert to what we saw the first 3 games.
Yeah.
Oh man, for the longest time with the Broncos, I think Bo Nix had -9 passing yards.
It was only 60.
Yeah, he ended with 60. Right.
Of note, Troy Franklin was second in the team on the team in targets, and probably, he finished with -2 yards. So,
dude, what an offense, man! Yeah, that's right, joking. Broncos D is soft. It is. You do have to hand it to them, man. Like the thing is, they know how to draft, man. They know how to draft players, right? It's just they don't have a quarterback. I was hoping Bo Nix was the guy, but no. Actually, a guy who I do want to talk to you guys a little bit about, is Jordan Addison, man. He's back. He had 3 or 4 targets for 70 yards in a score. He also had a 7-yard rushing touchdown, right? So Addison looked good. He took advantage of one-on-one situations. He got loose for a couple of long runs. The fact that they were, getting him the ball in situations like a Debo-ish type of situation, that felt good to him. It felt good to me. Look, we've got Addison as a wide receiver 6 on both of our FFPC teams. So when do we actually start flexing him in the starting lineup, right?
Yeah, bye week's coming up. It's gonna probably be necessary soon.
We're headed for 0-2 this week, man, which is really, really frustrating.
Oh, you mean we're gonna lose matchups? Yeah.
Well, in one league, we should tell the listeners. In one league, we're 2-1, and in another league, we're 0-3.
And in the 0-3 league, we're currently sitting on only 64 points.
Yeah, but it's because we had let's see, talk about a bunch of frauds, man. Brandon Ayuk, unfortunately, R.I.P. Rashid Rice.
Speaking of which, is Sam Laporta going to play?
Yeah, he's supposed.
I don't know, but he's in our class
right now. Yeah. Hope so.
No,
but
yeah, he's supposed to play.
Okay.
But before we move off of Addison, right? right? Yeah. Like yeah. So the issue with Addison was that like he is our wide receiver 6. I didn't want to gamble on him in most of my leagues, but I do think he's going to be like a regular fixture going forward, right? Like he looks fine.
He looks good. I think the question has always been, how long is this Sam Darnold offense sustainable? Like, is this just like Sam Darnold is the new Geno Smith and that's what it is? Or are we expecting this offense to turn back into a pumpkin?
He did do some Sam Darnoldy things today. I saw like a pretty bad pick, and I mean it was a strip sack from behind too. But he just kind of, there's some blips on the radar, and I think he's always going to be like that. I don't think I'm not super confident of like Geno Smith consistency levels. I think he's still always going to have a little Sam Darnold in him. They say take the man off the Jets, but you can't take the Jets out of the man or whatever. So. But I mean, Addison looked like I was right with Hasan. I was nervous to throw him in any of my Addison. I was nervous to throw him in any lineups this week just because I didn't know how healthy he was going to be, and he looked great. So
you look great, man.
Yeah. So I think Darnold's going to keep him afloat. I think
the guy who I am nervous about, joking brought him up earlier, is Brock Bowers, man. This was supposed to be the week. No Davante Adams. He only had 3 targets. He got 2 of those for 19 yards. Jacoby Myers had 10 targets, 5 catches for 49. And Trey Tucker, whoever that is, had 6 catches. He had 6 targets. He got 5 of those for 41 yards. Look, Brock Bowers was outproduced by Harrison Bryant. All right? Like, I'm not personally panicking. What on earth is this? All right?
Brock Bowers had 12 rushing yards. Don't forget those.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, that's right. They should actually probably convert him to running back. They should. Brock Bowers is ideal, like his true final level, like evolution, call it whatever you will, is basically supremely high usage Taysom Hill, right?
Oh, come on.
No. No. But like that's like, look, I don't mean that as like a pejorative, right?
Okay.
I mean like you're thinking of it from like he gets nine targets, right? Like 9 to 11 targets a game.
I guess that high volume Taysom Hill just is Travis Kelce. Well, no, because he gets rushing too.
No, he gets rushing, right?
Right. Okay. High volume. It's Christian McCaffrey.
Yeah.
All right.
240-pound Christian McCaffrey. Yeah.
So, but then what's his name also gets Bowers also gets 3 to 5 carries a game. Most of them in the green zone.
It's Debo.
There you go. That's it. That's the comp. Right? Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Well, Debo does not get 3 to 5 carries. He gets like 0 to 2 carries a game. Yeah. But yeah, so that's kind of what you need, right? Like, so it's a little unnerving. That meaningless Derrick Henry carry puts me on the wrong side of my bet, which is under 16.5. What I'm trying to say here is, like, Bowers should have smashed today, and it's a little frustrating that he didn't. So, Kevin, I am turning to you as like the biggest Cleveland Browns fan in the chat. I mean, on the pod here. Like, are the Browns tremendous at like stopping tight ends? Like, what are we missing with Bowers today?
I honestly don't know. I mean, they got Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is a good middle linebacker. He's athletic, but I mean, he shouldn't be shutting down Bowers. It's because we just saw them run that end around right at the beginning of the game, and they didn't really go to him. I don't think after that. I was watching it all in quad. I literally try to like look away from Browns games as much as as long as I am that guy, the Browns guy, but like it's hard for me to watch them because they're just so bad. But like, yeah, there's no reason that Brock Bowers shouldn't be doing that other than that the Raiders are historically just terrible at football. I mean, I think it's more of a Raiders thing than a Browns thing.
The Raiders shut him down.
Yeah. They do love Trey Tucker right now, though, the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. I still think Bowers is a guy we were right on. Like, he's obviously really good. But I want to, like, I don't know. I'm not at the point where I'm taking Bowers out of my starting lineup.
No,
Is that wrong?
no, I'm still starting him too.
Yeah. All right. 2 thumbs up for Bowers.
Mm-hmm. So I do know on one of my home leagues, so I do have Kincaid. I don't know what he's doing right now, but I have Kincaid and Bowers, and I think I have Likely on that team as well. So how are you guys feeling? What's your comfort level right now as far as Bowers among like the elite-ish guys? Say, Laporta,
Dalton
Kelsey.
Kincaid is not elite, man.
Yeah.
Dalton
I guess he was drafted
Dalton
as elite.
Kincaid is ruining my life.
Kincaid is leading the Bills in targets and yards right now.
No.
Yeah, but that's because Khalil
18
Shakir got
yards.
hurt. Because Khalil Shakir got hurt, man.
Yeah.
But like largely Dalton Kincaid is ruining my life. No, I'm serious. My kid is not going to go to school because of Dalton Kincaid.
It's like Bowers wasn't that good today, but it's hard to think of
No, but it's like hard.
tight ends that you would prefer to have over him, like even in
So
redraft.
well, yes. Like next season, where are you taking him? Right?
I mean, he's the tight end one.
Probably, right?
Yeah.
So far,
it's between him and Sam Laporta, right? It has to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We need a big turnaround from Laporta. So,
well, Laporta, I'm not necessarily worried about because like he has like both him and McBride also have the pedigree, but like I do think that's right. LB draft is trash. He literally didn't do it today. That is correct. Joking, 100%. But I think next year you're going to be having like your the first tight end pick is going to be one of Laporta, McBride, or Bowers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you move, and if Davante Adams is moved, right, and you actually start seeing Kincaid come on, Bowers coming on, then you have a real decision to make at that tight end one position. Because I remember both of you were like telling me that like McBride was gonna like be better than Marvin Harrison Jr. We haven't even had time to chat about him.
Yeah.
Right. There's like an issue with the Cardinals' offense. I don't know what's going on over there. But Marvin Harrison Jr. looks to be him. Yeah, that's right, joking. Well, like I'm with you on like the Jets rating for Adams. I think it's happening soon, dude. Like I think that is very much a real possibility. And I just think that like in the event of an Adams trade, that actually starts becoming a question of what does Bowers do, right? Like you would think that he would be able to like at least end the season matching Jacoby Myers in terms of targets.
So I'm looking in the Monday review tool, which doesn't have the afternoon games in it yet. So it only has 3 games for Bowers, but there are only 3 players who've scored more than him on the season: Dallas Goedert, Cole Kmet, and Pat Freiermuth. And actually,
that's right.
After today, he'll be above Freiermuth and Kmet, I think. So he'll be the tight end 2 behind Goddard. I mean, depending on what else happens in the other games, because
historical anomaly says it would be nice if Super Bowers could catch a touchdown. Yeah, I know, right? Like we'd love just catch a tutty, bro. Catch a tutty.
Like you're not taking Goddard or Kmet or Freiermuth that early because we kind of know what
Kmet also had that monster of a game last week.
Right. And Goddard, monster game. Right. All of these guys.
Goddard's beneficiary is coming from the fact that there's no AJ Brown and there's no Devonta Smith. When those guys are back, like what is his role?
Right.
Yeah. They say Kmet jumped back down to 3 targets today too. So
exerciser in chief, right? Like that's going to be Goddard's like main role. Tush push, master, right? Like that's just today. Devonta Smith was like a surprise inactive. Like I knew AJ Brown wasn't going to be back until the Eagles came off bye, but like Devonta Smith was like a surprise to me.
Oh really? I think they reported that yesterday, but I don't remember. Yeah, Goddard with 8 targets today, 62 yards. He's been He's been interesting. I mean, is he someone you consider like moving into, I don't know, the top 6 rounds in an FFPC draft next year?
Next year, I'd say probably not. I feel like he's just going to continue to go down. We do know that the tight end shelf life's a little longer. I don't know exactly how old he is. I'm assuming he's probably jumping close to 30. But I think overall, especially with AJ Brown, assuming health, Devonta Smith assuming health, I think he's gonna, at least, I mean, at the highest, he'd probably just stay wherever he was this year.
Well, he was actually a little underdrafted this year. I thought like he should go more in line with where Kittle would be. I think that's kind of where he'd like settle next year. I think that's like kind of the big issue, right? Is that like that seems to be like more fruitful in terms of prospecting for like that window right there. Seem to be more fruitful when prospecting for tight ends this season. I'm not going to say there's like a TE window because that's not like correct, but like there was some kernels of like actual value or pockets of value there, right? And so like you would want to be questioning like the Kincaids and everything else. Although like what was frustrating is Kincaid did it last year when he was in like this exact situation, and now he's not doing it. Like that's really frustrating.
Yeah.
That's like a massive, I don't know what happened level of miss on everyone's parts, right? Like there's no Diggs. Like when Diggs was out, like he did crushed, and now it's like, oh, there's no Diggs. And now it's like, wait, here's Khalil Shakir. And like, great, thanks. Danking my lineup, bro.
You do have George Kittle in the show sheet. He caught 4 of 4 targets for 45 yards and a touchdown?
Yeah. He also missed time because he got hurt. I mean, like, the Niners didn't have a lot to do, but, like, this was just me putting this in there because I wanted to, like, make fun of Brandon Ayuk some more because he's, like, fucking killing us, man.
Yeah.
Like, what's his issue in life, man? Man gets paid, and then he just stops playing the game.
He's too rich to care now, so...
Well, yeah, that's right. Like he, like the Niners should like be like reducing if he's going to withhold his best production from the Niners should start withholding a ton of his paychecks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I must say though that Kittle touchdown was probably the best catch of the day that I saw.
Yeah,
it was.
They didn't have to do much.
Yeah. But yeah, I know it seemed like he was a little extra angry because he got called for a hold that negated one of the 2 touchdowns on that same drive, as Jordan Mason was going in. So it just seemed like he just was starting to get angry and finally took over. So it's always good to see because Kittle's just a fun guy to root for. But
yeah, he's also what actually was nice. So he like exited with a hip thing and he came back and played, right? And I don't think he would have done that necessarily, especially in the fact that like, the game is like largely like dusted. The bats haven't looked. So I guess like let's put the topic on the head. At what point did the bats actually turn to Drake May? Right. That's a more interesting discussion to have here, I think.
Yeah, was it a surprise that he didn't get any snaps in this game?
Yeah, it was a massive surprise for me.
Yeah. I mean, I thought that kind of the point of having him play a little last week is you kind of slowly work him in a little more until eventually he's playing the whole game. He's starting. So,
and also they get to miss some of the tougher defenses. I mean, like, let's get real. Like the Niners defense is still very, very good. And I'm trying to pull this up. Every time I pull up my browser just freezes up. Probably because I've got like a potato for a laptop now. But they had, like Fred Warner had a good interception. They were they were on Brissett most of the day, right? At what point does like New England, they're 1-3. Like if anyone you want to turn it over to, it should be next week against Skylar Thompson or Tyler Huntley's Dolphins, right? Like that's not exactly like a frightening team. And then the Texans' defense is all right. It's not particularly great, but then they have the Jags, right? Like at some point, like you just have to take the kid gloves off, and you have to let him play. You drafted this guy in the first round, like you have to give him reps. I don't know. I want to get your guys' thoughts.
Well, right. I mean, when Brissett is playing this bad, it doesn't seem like there's much downside to getting May in the game. So yeah, it'd be one thing if Brissett was fine, but 19 for 32 with 168 yards, sacked 6 times. Yeah, I don't know.
Just uninspired football, man.
Mm-hmm. I know that last week too, when May did jump in. I mean, like the first throw that he had, the first attempt he had, he literally just like said, "I'm going to throw it to this guy," and almost got picked off right off the rip. So maybe they know something that we don't, but at the same time, like maybe they don't want to destroy his confidence this early. I mean, because that team is pretty brutal. I mean, he can dump off to Mario Douglas 100 times in the backfield and do that short little game, but like really, who do they really have to support, a rookie quarterback? I mean, I love
Stevenson's there.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just like it's one of those things that like maybe they just know something that we don't, or
I don't know, man.
It's
I don't know. But like the thing about like knowing something that we don't, right? Like assumes that there's like a plan in place, right? Like historically, it's been very tough for rookie quarterbacks that have sat their first year to really be productive going in. Patrick Mahomes is an anomaly. He's not the blueprint, right? That's the issue, right? Like what Mahomes is doing in the NFL is a mold breaker, right? This isn't like a training, right? Jordan Love, hypothetically, maybe I'd buy that argument, right? But like also Jordan Love had to sit behind Aaron Rodgers, right? There's a very big difference between Aaron Rodgers and Jacoby Brissett, is my point. Yeah. was doing. Yeah. It's just very difficult for me to like buy this when the Patriots are 1-3. They've got no like Super Bowl hopes, right? Like you would think that they should put him in there to at least figure out what they have, right? I mean, like the Broncos, like kudos, like fair play to them. They're letting Bo Nix and his -9 yards let them help beat the Jets, right? Like they're just trying to figure out what the best way to unleash him is. But you'd ideally like to know that a little bit more, right?
Yeah. You draft a guy at number 3 overall.
Yeah, like
presumably you plan to play him sooner rather than later.
I mean, even the Patriots fans are getting pretty frustrated with this, right? Like at some point, you want to know what the future of your friend like you want to at least see something different, right? Like Brissett's a good backup quarterback, right? I don't know. Maybe the Miami Dolphins could have used a quarterback of his caliber to replace, Tua turn the ball over, right? Like that's the way it goes. It's just like you would think, right? Like there's just no like you want to see what you have, man. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I was looking, and they have a week 14 bye, so it's not like they have that middle week bye where you can. So that's already too late in the game. I was just looking at their schedule, see if there's any like easy patches, and it seems like you brought up the Dolphins next week, but then they play the Texans, which are a so match. Yeah. Maybe the Jaguars, like you're looking for some sort of like easy like landing path, and maybe the Jags might be the best one. They have the Jags. Jets and then Titans,
I was thinking next week is the week though, right? Yeah, that's right. Joking. Bigsby and Bucky look electric today. But that's the weird thing is like fair play to Dank Bigsby, man. Like he looked awful last year. And this year, like all the Jags coaches were like talking him up the same way last year. And he's actually talking that talk and backing that back up, like backing his walk up, right? Like, and I know we had a question earlier on in the chat, like Kyle Singer. I still think it's ETN over Ford for week 5 in full PPR. But like largely is because I still think that they're going to use or at least turn to Trevor a little bit more. Like I don't understand what Doug Peterson and what the Jaguars are doing just in general. But I do think that offense is going to get better because we've seen them do better. Right? Like today, Christian Kirk made hay. He had he caught 7 of his 12 passes, I believe, for 61 yards and a score, right?
Mm-hmm.
They lost the Texans, but Kirk did look better. That should help, at least with the underneath game for ETN. Realistically, these guys need to get ETN in space, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, it's between like a legit talented back on a bad offense versus maybe talented back in Jerome Ford on a bad offense.
yeah, and like the issue with like Jerome Ford is that like I don't know what the Browns are doing, but like they will like some point go to Foreman and like they just do this weird stuff. It's really frustrating.
And Nick Chubb is presumably coming back sometime.
Oh, who knows, man?
Even
Yeah.
I mean,
Before
the Jets. Sorry.
Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, but even I mean, Brian Thomas Jr. looked good again today as well. I mean, like the Jacksonville offense is interesting. It just seems like they can't really put it together. Because he had that touchdown in the first quarter, and then he got missed on a second long touchdown in the first quarter. I mean, overall, Kirk had more targets than him, but I mean, Thomas again led the team in receptions, yards. Like Thomas looks good, and I just hope he doesn't waste away. I hope he doesn't waste away with Trevor Lawrence. Whatever he's doing, he just doesn't seem like he has any deep act. He likes to chuck it deep, but it doesn't seem like he hits his guys. So,
I don't know what's going on with that offense, man. Like it's so Jekyll and Hyde, right? Like last year they were in the playoffs, man, and they looked really good. This year the market, kudos to the market though, because they were very right on being down on all like Jags players.
What do you think of this? Brian Thomas better than Garrett Wilson?
I do like, yeah, that's right. Historical anomalies better than going to be. I do like that we're now the first anti-Garrett Wilson podcast. We are staking out a brand new, unforeseen. Look, the last time we did this was with Kyle Shits. We were right then. Hopefully, we're right now.
All right, it's on you, Hasan, to come up with a good nickname for Wilson before we're back.
I got nothing. Who would you have rest of the season, Garrett Wilson or Brian Thomas? Whoa, dude, that is a tough one. Give us a week. We'll be back on that one. That's actually a good question. That's a good question. We will be tracking. The one thing I do want to bring up though is that Christian Kirk, for better or for worse, still exists, right? He is in an ideal world. These are two perfectly complementary wide receivers. 5 weeks is all you need for Garrett Wilson fade. We'll be back here, baby. But I will tell you right now, if Christian Kirk and Brian Thomas Jr. do successfully unlock each other, this is bad news bears for, unfortunately, for ETN's PPR value. Like, that's the issue, right?
Yeah.
Because then you've got Christian Kirk who's going to take that shallow to intermediate route that typically you'd find for ETN, and then you'd have Brian Thomas Jr. playing the typical X receiver role.
Yeah, that's even without Ingram when he comes back. He'll get a little.
Yeah, we still haven't seen Ingram.
Good point. Yeah, I mean, like Jacksonville's offense doesn't look that much better than the Jets. Maybe it even looks worse in some ways, but Thomas is putting up like usable fantasy scores, whereas Wilson is just kind of empty targets. So,
yeah,
I don't know.
But doesn't Lawrence feel like he's kind of like ready to kind of like implode or explode or not? Whatever he's going to do, it's not going to be in a good way. It just seems like he's like teetering on the brink of just falling apart completely. I don't know. So that makes me really nervous.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess like no interceptions. He did have 2 touchdowns, but otherwise pretty bad game. We mentioned Rashee Rice and the Chiefs briefly, but one thing that was kind of interesting while we're talking about like bad old running backs is Kareem Hunt leading the team in carries. I don't know. What do you guys make of that? Carson Steele was someone that I was not exactly excited to start this week, but I thought this is kind of the safest way to play the Chiefs backfield. So dead wrong about that. I don't know. Is Kareem Hunt a thing?
I don't know. I mean,
Samaje Perine got the touchdown, dude.
Yeah, and Steele put the ball on the ground the first
that was
drive.
it.
So yeah, so then I think they just said, all right, it's 2 weeks in a row, get the hook. I mean, I think even if Hunt is a little bit dusty, I mean, you could say he's dusty completely.
He didn't really look dusty to me. Like,
he
was
looked
like,
good.
Man, the thing with like, I'm such a sucker for this because like every time I look up, like I'm always chasing. And this is like a true personal feeling. The running backs that look like Jamal Charles, man. Right? Like you look up your screen, you see the dreads, speed, gutting, and I'm like, oh man, what if I was young again? You know?
Yep. Hunt's a mixture of Jamal Charles look and then Pacheco's running style. His arms are always flailing around. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, none of these guys look as effortless as Jamal Charles, right? But like, if you have like anything that reminds me a little bit of like Jamal Charles, like I'm like sadly like drafting you, and I'm probably paying the price, right? Like, narrator, he wasn't Jamal Charles. That's actually joking. That is exactly what my divorce papers are going to say when I go bankrupt. But yeah, so like that's the thing is that like Ryan had the touchdown. I don't know about what you're doing with Carson Steele. Like I'm sitting like a chump in a couple of my leagues with a negative 1.5 in my starting lineup. But I don't know. I think you do have to pick up Kareem Hunt, but like I think there's better options. I mean, like right now, I was telling you guys a little while ago about how I traded away Garrett Wilson for James Cook. It's like, yeah, this is gonna be great. Ty Johnson runs in a touchdown, so like, yeah. That's the thing is like Casey, like joking says, Casey is turning down. That's the issue, right? Like they need like. I don't know, man. Like it's very nervous, and like, the thing is, like Casey is capable of winning games while playing very, very slowly, and it just like I hate that they're able to do that. But
yeah,
like it's diametrically opposed to what you want out of fantasy football, and like, this is where like the fantasy football and real football come at loggerheads, right? Like on one end, they're winning. On the other end, not great for us.
Yeah. If you think Kareem Hunt is going to be like the lead running back in Kansas City, are you prioritizing him over like Jeremy McNichols?
Yeah, sure.
Oh yeah,
for sure. Jeremy McNichols made a lot of people very sad today. Because that's very much a what could have been, right?
Yeah. Well, still could be, right? Gotta have hope. I never stopped believing.
I did.
What? Show me a Jeremy McNichols bags.
All right, I probably can't. I'm sure there's some super deep league I'm in where he's still on the end of the bench.
Probably like the kitchen sink leagues, right? If you're still in those.
Yeah, joking. Washington is a juggernaut.
They are, man.
They're the most fun team to watch right now in the NFL.
Yeah. The way those guys talk about, dude, the way they talk about like Jayden Daniels is like the second coming of Jesus.
Well, and even like the Kansas or the Cincinnati game on Monday night was so fun because you knew that like that was the get right game for the Bengals, and you get to watch Jayden Daniels on the other side. Like maybe the Commanders' offense isn't like super fun to watch outside of Jayden Daniels, but like
Terry F1 is fun.
Oh yeah.
But like Terry F1 when he's actually playing like to where he can play, he's a very fun wide receiver.
Yeah. And I say I drafted a lot of Brian Robinson, so I think that's exciting to me, even though he might not be the most exciting running back out there. Kind of like a, big.
Yeah. No, I mean, well, I actually like Brian Robinson is like a very old school running back that I just kind of enjoy watching. Like, right, like when he's on a roll, or when guys like Derrick Henry on a roll, like they're actually very fun, like that smash mouth through the line. Austin Eckler looked phenomenal last week too, before getting hurt, sadly. right?
Yeah.
God, talking about the Commanders, it makes me sick because I hate their team, man.
Yeah. Well, coming tomorrow, I was already kind of telling. That's a little teaser for the Monday review. That was going to be the headline. Is just like how fun Washington is, and also how fun they are to play against. So that's going to be kind of the top headline in the Monday review article tomorrow. So excited to write that and kind of dig into more. That's just more of how I see it, but I'm excited to get into like more actual data and see exactly like how teams are playing against them and everything. So very excited about that, Joe King.
Yeah.
Guys, as we head out the week, let's end this all on a high. What are you boys excited about this week?
Yes. Well, excited about a Jackson Smith and Jigba breakout game, a second breakout game on Monday night. That is definitely happening.
I would love for signs of life from Jahmyr Gibbs, right? I'm hoping for a prime time 2 touchdown, 5 catches for 65 yards, 11 carries for 79 yards, kind of game out of Jahmyr Gibbs, hopefully.
Yeah, that would be nice.
Yeah.
It's going to be a tough one, though, on the Seahawks' side, because I do think that the Lions have a tough running game. So that kind of works exactly what you were saying, Blair. Kevin, let's hear it.
A lot of passes.
So I'm hoping that we can get some H-Chan action. I don't really know a ton about Tennessee's defense, but I mean that's he's become one of my favorite players, and he's probably a lot of people's favorite players just because he's so exciting to see. So I'm hoping it'll be a get right game tomorrow. I know Huntley's supposed to be starting. We'll see how that works out. He's like literally one of the few EP double guys, like him, Saquon.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping
H-Chan?
that. Yeah. I mean, he's been getting. I don't think he's dropped he's converted every single target he's had, and I think he's been getting 7 or 8 targets a game, every game so far this year. So he's my guy.
Do you think it happens with Tyler Huntley under center? Joe King, I'm excited about Garrett Wilson getting a season high 61 yards next week.
The whole Tyler Huntley thing, that's kind of what I'm worried about, him being a little more of a rushing quarterback. But I mean, Skylar Thompson was peppering him, and Skylar Thompson's kind of more athletic-ish sort of guy. So there's hope. Yeah. There's hope.
Yeah.
Excited to see it. Don't know if it's going to happen. Excited to see it though.
Tyler Huntley was in a Pro Bowl not too long ago.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the 14th ultimate probably, but
I did find it funny when people last week were talking about how Andy Dalton was a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback, and it's you do know that's not a good thing, right?
Pro Bowl is meaningless, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's the NFL is the most meaningless Pro Bowl of all time.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that'll do it for us tonight. But yeah, be sure to like and subscribe and do all the podcast things too. Give us a rating and review. I think that's a podcast thing people do, right? And you can still get a discount to RotoViz with the code RVRadio2024. We still got a lot of great in-season content. Kevin is killing it on the waivers article, on the Monday review article, the wide receiver advanced stats, and we've got all the tools updating in season and a bunch of cool stuff there. So
and to that one guy from the start of the show who said I shouldn't be chewing on stream, I won't do it again. I promise.
We'll
Sorry, man. I just messed up on the beer selection. Won't happen again.
We promise.
Really threw me for a loop.
All right. Well, thanks for watching, everyone.
Thanks for hanging out and enjoy the second half of this game, guys.
Take care.